We're still talking about idols in an LFBC youth group. And so this week we're talking about what I'm calling the seduction of success. We get so trapped and our culture is so obsessed with popularity and success and power and achievements and all those kinds of things. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But if they become what we obsess with and what we're all about, they become idols. If that's what we passionately pursue over anything else, then it becomes idolatry. Ecclesiastes 2 addresses this. I increased my achievements. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself and planted every kind of fruit tree in them. I constructed reservoirs for myself from which to irrigate a grove of flourishing trees. I acquired male and female servants and had slaves who were born in my house. I also owned livestock, large herds and flocks, more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. I also amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I gathered male and female singers for myself and many concubines, the delights of men. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also remained with me. All that my eyes desired, I did not deny them. I did not refuse myself any pleasure, for I took pleasure in all my struggles. This was my reward for all my struggles. When I considered all that I had accomplished and what I had labored to achieve, I found everything to be futile in a pursuit of the wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. And then skipping over to verse 18 through 25. I hated all my work that I labored at under the sun, because I must leave it to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether he will be wise or a fool? Yet he will take over all my work that I labored at skillfully under the sun. This too is futile. So I began to give myself over to despair concerning all my work that I labored at under the sun. When there is a person whose work was done with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and he must give his portion to a person who has not worked for it, this too is futile and a great wrong. For what does a person get with all his work and all his efforts that he labors at under the sun? For all his days are filled with grief, and his occupation is sorrowful. Even at night his mind does not rest. This too is futile. There is nothing better for a person than to eat, drink, and enjoy his work. I have seen that even this is from God's hand, because who can eat and who can enjoy life apart from wisdom? For to the person who is pleasing in his sight he gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy, but to the sinner he gives the task of gathering and accumulating in order to give to the one who is pleasing in God's sight. This too is futile, a pursuit of the wind. Solomon, the writer of Ecclesiastes, had so much wisdom with all these things that he pursued, realizing that it was just chasing after the wind, something you'll never catch, something you'll never fulfill. So we're going to talk through some of these things that have to do with success. The first has to do with popularity. Popularity is massively overrated. Jesus shunned popularity. I mean, he had crowds at times. He had people following him. He enjoyed periods of popularity, but at those periods, that was when he challenged people with some hard sayings and some difficult things about following him, and a lot of people turned away. They couldn't live up to what he was saying. They didn't like what he was saying. They didn't want to be challenged like that. They really wanted him for the magic and the miracles and nothing else. They wanted for the magic show. He was ultimately called a friend of sinners. That's who he spent a lot of time with, and that's not going to get you a lot of popularity in our society. Jesus cared about showing people that he cared about them, about showing people the way to God, about showing people that they mattered. He told the disciples even that they would be hated because of him, so he shunned popularity. We have to ask ourselves, who am I trying to please? Is it God or is it somebody else? Am I living for the applause of men? Am I living for the applause of other people? Am I living for the applause of God? Other people will make us wishy-washy. They won't satisfy us. It will never get us to where we think it's going to go. It's aimless. It's purposeless. If we're seeking to please God, however, we'll find what we're looking for. We'll find something that fills the void in our lives. So that's the first thing. Popularity is massively overrated. The second thing, achievements give false security. There is nothing wrong with achieving and being good in school or in band or in baseball or in different things in our lives and being successful in that way. But we start to believe that we're the God of our own lives, that it comes from ourselves instead of from God. And it's a dangerous thing to start to believe and live like we are the ones in control. We were never meant to be God. We were never meant to play God. We were never meant to have the control we think we have. We need to learn to give God the results and give God the reins and give God the glory. Because we tend to think our value and our security is in ourselves. We start trusting in our own wisdom, our own strength, our own performance. Start finding our value in who we think we are and what we think we've accomplished and what we do and all those kinds of things. We start believing we're experts and we make poor decisions based on that. We make bad choices based on that. We're blinded to reality. We have a distorted view of who we are versus who God is, and we forget that we belong to him. And we also start to feel that we have to remain on top to stay valuable. And that's something we can't always do. We're not always going to be at the top. We put great pressure on ourselves to prove our worth through being at the top, through personal achievement and things like that. We feel we have to be on top. We feel we have to win. Feel we have to be at the top to show that we're the best, or otherwise we're losers. Should we ever fall from the top, we lose our sense of purpose, we lose our sense of value. We tend to think we can control people's approval and their opinions and stuff like that through our performance. Third thing that I want to talk about is this, that success cannot answer the biggest questions that we have in life. It only gives an illusion of the answers. It only gives a false sense of the big questions. There's an initial rush of happiness that leads us to believe that we've arrived, that we've accomplished what we need to do, that we've been included and accepted and proved ourselves, but it quickly fades away. So what are those questions? Well, the first one is this: who am I? We're all searching for that. Success and achievement can't tell us what our purpose is. We won't always have it, so it's going to come and go. And so it quickly fades away after feeling like we've arrived for a short period of time. We're not defined by our achievements. We're not defined by our accomplishments. We're not defined by our successes. Second question: what am I really worth? Successful people have this false sense of security based on their success. They think they've arrived because of what they've done. They think they've arrived because of what they've achieved. It comes from deifying our achievements and making that the most important thing, expecting them to keep us safe from the world and from the troubles of life and so forth. Our worth is not defined in what we accomplish, but it's defined by our Maker. And then the third question: how do I face death? When we arrive at the end of our lives, all of our accomplishments, popularity, achievements, all that kind of stuff, that's not going to mean much of anything. It's not going to get us anywhere. It won't keep death from coming. It's coming for everybody. It won't keep our eternal destination from being decided. We will still face death. So they can't answer the big questions of life. The other area I want to talk about is power. Sometimes we let power get to our heads. Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel chapter 2-4 is kind of an example of that. We want what we want regardless of what God wants. If you look at Adam and Eve back in Genesis 2, around verse 17 and so forth, they desired what they wanted, no matter what God said, no matter what God gave them. They wanted what they weren't supposed to have, what they weren't supposed to get, despite the fact that they really had everything. And when you go back to Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel chapter 2, his empire came crashing down because of a power trip and because of what he tried to do with that. We tend to seek control. We tend to want to be in control. We struggle wanting to have the keys to everything, to being the ones in control, to assure ourselves that we still have power over our lives, that we can control it. We need to learn not to get consumed, whether it's professional power, political power, personal power, whatever. Depend on God alone. So what can we conclude here? First is this: realize we're not fundamentally better than other people. Everything we have is from God. Everything we do, everything we achieve, it's not a product of ourselves alone. We're not as personally responsible for our success as we want to believe. None of us is inherently better than anyone else. Second thing, remember to make God famous and draw the attention to Him. Who are we doing what we're doing for? Who does my life bring glory to? Who does it point to? Is it me or is it Him? We need to live as a witness to Him, live as someone drawing glory and honor and attention to Him. And then the third conclusion: human applause is temporary, but God's rewards are eternal. Those pats on the back, those successes, those achievements, they feel good for a moment, but they quickly go away. It feels good to win. It feels good to be cheered on, and there's nothing wrong with that. It feels good to be liked, but there's nothing wrong with that. But that's temporary, and it can go away quickly. It can fade away quickly. It can be forgotten quickly. What lasts is what we do for God. Here's the thing. Too often we want comfort more than we want Jesus. Acceptance before we want Jesus. Security before we want Jesus. A lot of things more than and before we want Jesus. Following Jesus was never meant to be easy. It's the best life, but it's not the easy life. It's not always the glorious life from a human perspective, but it's worth it, whatever the cost. None of that other stuff's going to fulfill us. None of that other stuff's going to satisfy us. It'll give us an illusion of security. It'll give us an illusion of satisfaction, but it won't last. Only what we do for God will last. Salvation is achieved not through ourselves, not through our own strength, not through what we do, but through surrender, giving up the reins to God. Service, sacrifice, death to self. He's our audience. He's the one we're trying to please. He's the one we find true success in alone. So ask yourself, am I chasing false security and all these other things? Achievement, success, popularity, power? If I am, I need to let go of those things. Stop chasing after those things. They'll leave you hollow and empty, and learn to surrender to God.